With regards to the recitation of Surah Yaseen in the morning, it has no virtues to choose to recite Surah Yaseen at any specific time. All the ahadith were narrated in this regard are between very weak or fabricated. I know that since our childhood, our parents have been narrating upon us ahadith in this regard. But whatever the Prophet ﷺ said is the truth. Singling out any particular surah of the Quran with a virtue or a specific virtue, if you do it a certain number of times or a certain places or certain times, is actually something that requires a reference. If you don't have a reference, then just recite it as any other surah. Recite it like Al-Baqarah, recite it like An-Nas, recite it like Al-Kahf. But if you think that there is a specific reference, a specific preference to recite this surah at a specific time or place or in certain number of times, and you don't have a reference, this is categorized as an innovation. And subhanallah, the person who fabricated all the ahadith concerning the virtues of each chapter of the Quran, when he was confronted, why did you do that? He fabricated a hadith. He said, because I saw people were busy with studying the seerah, studying the fiqh, and they have neglected the Quran. So he said, with a good intention, I wanted to bring people back to the recitation of the Quran by making up a hadith concerning the virtues of this surah or this surah. Accordingly, and after knowing that if the reference that is provided is not sound and it's not a reference, then we should not act upon it. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned specific surah in the Quran. He said the greatest surah of the Quran is Surah Al-Fatiha. We have a hadith in this regard. He said the greatest ayah of the Quran is Ayatul Kursi. And he ordered reciting Surah Al-Baqarah particularly and Surah Al-Imran. He said اقرأوا الزهراوين البقرة وآل عمران فإنهما يأتيان يوم القيامة كأنهما غمامتان أو غيايتان. And he said about Surah Al-Mulk, a single surah that consists of 30 ayahs, it interceded and argued on behalf of its companion, a person who used to recite it on a regular basis, until it interceded for him and admitted him to paradise. We believe so because these are sound references. To recite Surah Al-Mulk in the evening before going to sleep, to recite the last couple ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, Aman al-Rasul, look a specific timing and a specific promise. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whoever recites the last two ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah before going to sleep, kafatah, they will suffice him. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله, to the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. You recite these ayat whenever you're lying down on your bed and before going to sleep. Then they will suffice you as means of protection, as means of dhikr. They will suffice you, as the Prophet ﷺ said. Reciting Ayat al-Kursi before going to sleep guarantees security against the harms of Satan until the morning. There are sound references in this regard. Gathering your palms and reciting the last 3 chapters of the Quran before going to sleep. After the Fajr prayer, after the Maghrib prayer, reciting it 3 times. After every prayer, to recite it once, each surah. We have sound references. Oh, what about reciting Surah Al-Waqi'ah every night? It protects you against poverty. There is no such hadith. But I heard it, and I heard it too. And I used to do it because of that. Look, if I decide to recite Surah Al-Waqi'ah at any time, it's not just permissible. You will be rewarded, obviously. For each letter of the Quran you read, you get that much reward. But the thing is, when you keep in the back of your mind that you're reciting this surah on a regular basis because it has certain virtues, it was not promised. It was not revealed. The Prophet ﷺ never made mention of that. And to understand the danger of circulating something which is not a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَنْ كَذَبَ عَلَيَّ مُتَعَمِّدًا فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Let whoever deliberately fabricates something and ascribes it to me, he says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Let him expect his seat in hellfire. If he fabricates something and he ascribes it to me, he says the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, even if it is something very good, when it comes to the deen, the message has been sealed. There is not a single spot which is empty that for you or for me or for anyone to suggest. I feel embarrassed when one of our colleagues, big sheikh in the United States, was talking about the recitation of Surah Yaseen for 7 times, then asking Allah for any need, it will be fulfilled. I did not feel bad because he said so, because since our childhood we hear things like that. And to recite it upon somebody who is dying or recite it at the graveyard, what made me feel sad is that this speaker said, I know that the Prophet ﷺ never said so. And indeed, there is no hadith in this regard. But some of my shuyukh tried it and they said it does work out. It helps. This is very dangerous. This is extremely dangerous. Why? Because now you are prescribing and legislating something new in the deen. You can recite it 700 times. But to tell people that if you want your need to be fulfilled, you need to recite the surah so many times, certain number of times, then you're a liar. Point blank. Point blank. No matter how big is your turban, no matter how many PhD you have, because it's either that the Prophet ﷺ did not know about it, and mashallah, your sheikh figured it out on his own. So wahy, he receives wahy after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, which is plain lie. Or that you say, no, actually the Prophet ﷺ knew it, he knew everything. So why didn't he tell us? While the Prophet ﷺ said, تَرَكْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْمَحَجَّةِ الْبَيْضَاءِ, he did not spare anything that will benefit us, but he guided us to it. He did not save anything that is evil, but he warned us against it. Otherwise, it is literally accusing the Prophet ﷺ of treachery, of lacking of honesty, because he did not share with us everything that he knew. So you see where you put yourself? You put yourself in a dilemma. Either one of the two dilemmas is evil. To say that the Prophet ﷺ knew it, but he did not tell us about it, or the Prophet ﷺ did not know it, and then guess what? Your sheikh knew about it. So what shall we do? Follow and do not innovate. Somebody is dying. Can I sit next to him and I recite Quran? Yes. I recited Surah Al-Baqarah, great. I recited Surah Al-Waqi'ah, great. I recited Surah Al-Fatiha, no problem. I recited Surah Yaseen, no problem. But when you come to do this, particularly because there is a specific virtue, or it is prescribed to recite in the morning or in the evening certain surah or certain adhkar, then if any sheikh tells you do this number of times, and he doesn't give you a proof, or he says that my shuyukh tried it and they said it's great, it's marvelous, then I wouldn't take anything from him. Not only this one. How can I trust him with the deen of Allah when he says, I know that the Prophet ﷺ did not do it, but my sheikh says it is good, and this is plain innovation. May Allah the Almighty guide us to what is best.